All right, let's dive in. There's this company out there that makes a pretty wild claim about itself. They say they're the most important tech company you've never heard of. Now, that's a bold statement, right? But what if I told you that, honestly, it might be an understatement?
I want you to think about something for a sec. What if? What if our entire digital world, and I mean everything, your phone, the internet, even the most advanced military tech, what if all of it depended on just one single, unbelievably complex machine? A machine that only one company in the entire world can build.
Sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, right? Well, it's not. That's not some hypothetical question. It's the world we're living in, right now.
So let's talk about this machine. It's basically the invisible engine that powers, well, everything. You know how our gadgets just keep getting faster, smaller, more powerful every single year? Yeah, this machine is the reason why.
And when I say its impact is huge, I'm not kidding. We're talking about the absolute bedrock for the most advanced chips on the planet. Your brand new iPhone? Yep. An F-35 fighter jet? That too. The massive data centers that run all our AI? You got it. It all comes back to this one machine. And get this, the biggest players in the game, TSMC, Samsung, Intel, they are completely 100% reliant on it. They literally can't make their best stuff without it.
So who is this company? Who builds this linchpin of the entire global economy? Well, it's a company from the Netherlands called ASML. And if you want to boil down what they do to its simplest form, they build the most advanced printers in human history, not for paper, but for microchips.
Okay, so the fancy term for this is lithography, but here's an easy way to think about it. Imagine a skyscraper. A microchip is kind of like that, but built up with hundreds of super thin layers, and each layer is an insanely complex city map of tiny circuits. ASML's machines are the ones that print those impossibly small city maps layer by layer onto a slice of silicon.
And this is the part that's just wild. When it comes to the chips that are going to power our future, the really cutting-edge stuff, ASML isn't just the leader. No. They are the entire market. They have a 100% monopoly. Nobody else, anywhere, can do what they do.
All right, so let's peek inside this thing, because honestly, how it works, it sounds like it was pulled straight from a sci-fi blockbuster.
There's a great quote from an engineer at ASML that just nails it. He said older machines were like trying to draw a detailed map with a big, clumsy marker pen. But what ASML pioneered, this thing called extreme ultraviolet light, or EUV, that's like drawing with the sharpest, finest tip pen you can possibly imagine. And that precision is what lets you pack billions and billions more transistors onto a tiny chip.
So here's the catch. You can't just find this EUV light lying around. It doesn't really exist naturally here on Earth. So ASML had to figure out how to make it. And this is where it gets insane. Inside the machine, a super high-energy laser zaps a tiny droplet of molten tin. And it does this 50,000 times a second. The tin basically explodes into a plasma, and that's what gives off the EUV light. Then, this light gets bounced off the flattest mirrors ever made by humans. Seriously, if you blew one up to the size of Germany, the biggest imperfection on it would be smaller than a grain of sand. And all of this has to happen inside a perfect vacuum because a single stray air molecule could ruin the whole thing. Just wow.
So what does all that mind-bending complexity get you? Well, for starters, a price tag of about $200 million for one machine.
It weighs a massive 180 tons. Think about a big city bus. Yeah, that's how heavy we're talking.
It's built from over 100,000 different parts, all coming together from a super specialized supply chain that spans the entire globe.
And to top it all off, it's so huge that you can't ship it in one piece. They have to take it apart, pack it into 40 different shipping containers, and fly it to the customer on three separate Boeing 747s, just to deliver one machine.
So the question is, how on earth did one company, a company that literally started out in a leaky shed in the Netherlands, pull this off? How did they end up dominating the single most important technology of our era?
Well, it really comes down to an incredible long-term vision and a massive gamble. Way back in the 90s, they bet the entire farm on this crazy EUV technology that nobody was sure would even work. It was so difficult and expensive that by 2012, they actually went to their own customers, Intel, TSMC, Samsung, and said, hey, if you want this to happen, you need to help us fund it. And they did. They poured billions into the research. So when ASML finally shipped that first machine, everyone else, well, they were completely left in the dust. And the result of that huge, decades-long bet?
It's just, look at this. When it comes to EUV machines, we're not talking 90% market share or even 99%. It's 100%. A total, absolute monopoly on the key to the future of computing.
And it's not like a competitor is just around the corner. As one tech analyst put it, there just isn't a true competitor to ASML. And you can see why, right? The decades of research, the billions of dollars, that incredibly complex supply chain. The moat around this company is just too wide for anyone else to cross.
So you can probably guess what happens next, right? When one company in one country holds this kind of power, it becomes a massive deal in global politics. And that's exactly how ASML found itself right in the middle of the geopolitical chip wars.
At the heart of it, you've got a major tech race between the U.S. and China. For the United States, making sure they and their allies have access to this tech and their rivals don't is absolutely critical for staying ahead. Meanwhile, for China, being able to build their own advanced chips is a top national priority. And these ASML machines, they're the prize at the center of the whole game.
And you can see how this has played out over the last few years. It really started heating up in 2019, when the U.S. began leaning on the Dutch government to block sales of the top-tier EUV machines to China. Since then, the rules have just gotten tighter and tighter, basically turning this one piece of technology into a major tool of international politics.
So, where does all this go from here? What's next for the world of chips?
Well, one thing's for sure, ASML isn't resting on its laurels. They're already shipping their next-generation machine, a beast called High-NA. It pushes the laws of physics even further. And the price? Over $370 million each. So yeah, their lead. It's only getting bigger.
So it all comes down to this. ASML has built one of the most incredible technological marvels in human history, something that's absolutely essential for, well, for the future of everything. But in doing so, they've also created the ultimate bottleneck, a single point of control, which leaves us with a really, really big question to think about. When one company holds all the keys to the future, who gets to decide who gets a copy?